All right, I will call to order the Capital Planning Subcommittee Workshop, Thursday, March 3rd, 2022. We can go around and do introductions.
Carrie Gaudette, Blackstone member of the school committee.
Hi, I'm Greg Smalley from DRA Architects.
Since you're at the table, you guys have to introduce yourselves.
I knew there was a loop.
That's it. We lure you in.
I'm Colleen Collette. I live in town.
Yeah, Ed Collette, live on Liberty Hill Drive.
Thanks for
Scott
doing
Ebert,
this.
Interim Director of Facilities.
And Matt Aaronworth, Assistant Superintendent.
And Tara Larkin, I'm on school committee, and I am now the chairperson of this group.
Congratulations.
Thanks. So we do have minutes to approve, review, but we will save them because we don't have the quorum. And then some updates from the capital outlay meetings. So we met with both town capital outlay groups. So is that going to be you sharing?
I'm happy to. Yeah, so essentially we went in front of both the Blackstone and the Millville capital outlay committees, and we presented our capital improvement plan, which is a larger document that is specific. I'm speaking to you guys too, as the public here.
It's okay.
Yeah. There was a plan that was developed with about 20 years worth of work that needs to be done, regardless of if we are reorganizing or doing anything different with the buildings. The capital improvement plan that we developed is just to fix all of the things that are in the buildings and keep on top of it eventually. So it's like a 20-year master plan. So we presented that plan at the Blackstone and the Millville capital outlay committees over the last couple of months. And then, excuse me, at last night's joint town meeting, a big piece of the discussion was, where is this work going? From this committee to what needs to be done with the capital improvement plan itself. And the conversation was that we will start a smaller working group. We asked the towns to identify one or maybe two members from each of their boards to put together for a smaller working group that will end up going through the capital improvement plan, because, again, I'm just explaining, because have you guys followed any of the capital improvement plan
A little
stuff?
bit. That's
Okay.
why we're here,
Yeah, it's
because we
okay,
want to
yeah.
hear it from the horse's
Yeah.
mouth.
There's two different pieces of the work that are going on, and we really need to make sure that we're separating them at this point. So this started as a capital, perfect, Greg. This started as a capital planning subcommittee, and then it started to take shape into us realizing that we might need to make large-scale changes to the district with respect to the properties that we're using. But part of the initial call was always to put together a maintenance plan to make sure that we're taking care of everything that we have. When does it need to get fixed? When our thing is going to go kaplunk? When should we expect them to? So that's what you're seeing there, is that capital improvement plan. What we're doing now is we're basically creating a smaller working group of some of the town members from Select Board, Finance Committee, Capital Planning Committee, or Capital Outlay, whichever the towns refer to them as, and then the district, to go through that document, which has 20 years worth of repairs that need to be made to each school, and start prioritizing what things we want to take action on this year or next year and in the years to follow. So that's going to be, it's not as simple as just following the list. I mean, it is prioritized if you look at it. But it's not as simple as saying, well, this one is priority one and it's a really important thing, so we're going to replace that. Because if it's in the high school and it's in a section that we potentially may be doing something else to, we may not want to invest that kind of money in that work right now. So that's why we're putting together this smaller working group to really just address the things that can be fixed now. And then concurrently, we have this group. Steve, welcome.
Hello.
Good, how are you? we have this group, which we've really embarked on more of the MSBA master plan process, which is we've been talking about what options there are for reorganizing some of our grade configurations in order to really address the needs of the high school. So in our work, what we've identified and in the capital study, I'm sure Greg can talk to it more, but he didn't get a chance to talk last night, so I won't give him one tonight either. He's okay. So in the capital study, the bulk of those costs really that are in that capital improvement plan, they're connected to the high school. So the high school is our biggest concern right now. So that's what started this piece of the work, which is MSBA, which is the Massachusetts School Building Authority. They have grant programs that you can apply to, and we are looking to apply to that program. And what we're doing is submitting what's called a statement of interest, or we're hoping to. The school committee is going to vote on the 10th whether or not we're going to actually move forward. And if we do, then we submit this statement of interest to the MSBA. And if we're accepted into the program, or if they look favorably on our program, then we would need to go to the communities and look to fund a feasibility study. So the feasibility study is when designers and the architects come into the district as part of the MSBA work, and they take a look at what our thoughts were, but they also are assessing what the real options are for each of the buildings and what could other potential reconfigurations or restructuring, remodeling, what that could look like. So that feasibility study is probably a 1 to 2 year process.
Year to 18 months.
Year to
somewhere in there.
18 months. And that's where a lot of the bigger questions will be answered with respect to, would it make sense to do this instead? Would it make sense to do that instead? This committee was charged with trying to identify concerns, and we've identified a number of potential configurations with their limitations, but we don't have the structural engineering expertise to go into each building and give a dollar value to what changes could take place. So, and then if we move forward with the feasibility study will produce a recommendation. And then if that recommendation is to consolidate some grades into one building and then, either renovate or rebuild the high school, then after the feasibility study, we would return to the communities explaining what's going on at that juncture, and then the towns would have to vote again to move forward with the project. So that's an important piece that we wanted to make clear at the town meetings, and that was, I think, well understood at those meetings, which is this statement of interest process that we're looking to get into is it's non-committal, and there is no finances attached to it. It's basically just asking MSBA if they would be interested in helping us and working with us to fund it. And then if they accept us, then we would have to put up the funding for the feasibility study, which, we discussed was probably in the 500,000 to 800,000 range. For that.
Need to get that number updated.
Yeah, you said that was low the other night,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, it
Probably
might be
a
too
little
low.
We're going to
Okay.
bank close to $1 million.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Just for the study?
Yeah.
that's for the study.
But then it comes off the project.
Yeah.
It will get.
It's
you
part
will
of the
get your
project.
It's part of what we would be reimbursed for through the grant if we decide
It just seems like a
to-
lot of money
if we
to
decide
ask somebody's
to move.
opinion.
No,
It's a little more than an
Yeah, it's
opinion.
far more than an opinion.
It's a little more than an opinion, but no, we
Due
do
diligence.
we do understand that. It's a lot of money
It's a
for
lot of
any,
money.
it's a lot of money for any community.
What it does do is it takes you almost through schematic design of the building. So it's taking about 15% of your architectural design fees and Probably about 30%, 25% of your owner's representative fees. So those two fees would make up about probably 80% of the feasibility study cost. And the rest is for owner's costs, geotechnical engineers, those type of things that don't fall under either the architect or the owner's rep. And if you move forward with that and you go forward with a project, the state pays their share of that cost. If you get to that point and stop, you bear that in most cases. There have been cases where the state has participated, but then if you come back the second time, you'll pay for the entire cost. So there's some tempting from the state to go forward with it and make it thorough. The good part about it is that it has been shown to set a very accurate understanding of the cost of the project and also the timeline for the project. So it was one of the problems that the previous iteration of the Mass School Building Authority had a lot of trouble doing. They had a lot of cost overruns and a lot of projects that went on for too long or didn't accomplish what they set out to do. And that's really been addressed with this process, but it requires more money up front from the towns.
And that is essentially where we are. So with respect to that capital plan update, the smaller working group is breaking off and looking at those things that are in that document. And then this group is going to remain intact to move forward with hopefully the process of submitting a statement of interest to the MSBA. And as Greg mentioned, they reimburse the project. We're hoping to see like a 55% reimbursement rate from them, which is a tremendous amount of money in the grand scheme of the project. And you can see in those documents, one of the things that we've really been saying is we can talk about what we want to do. There are certainly multiple options, and depending on whose perspective you're taking, one may seem better than the other. The only option that doesn't really exist is to do nothing.
Yeah.
Because we have in that package, without compounding it over time, $100 million worth of things.
It's mostly
that
the
need
high
to be
school,
done.
you said, right?
And a bulk of it is the high school.
Yeah, that's.
And so that's kind of where this group's thinking went, was if the bulk of the stuff that we need to do is for the high school, and we can get half of it reimbursed or more than half of it reimbursed and make it part of like this overall larger plan, then that makes sense to us. Some of the conversations too that have happened at this meeting, which were really good ones, and Steve brought it up initially when he joined, is one of the configurations we're looking at is maybe just using this building and the high school and doing PK through PK to 5 in the Hartnett building here, and then making the high school building a 6 through 12, which would remove all of the operating costs for 2 properties in the district, but not only remove the operating costs, it would afford the towns the opportunity to take those buildings back and potentially make some really good use out of them for the community. And it was, to Steve's point, I know in Millville that they've been saying, we could use buildings, we could use this space.
Yeah, I'm on the capital planning in Millville, and we need almost everything. I don't know if you know the Longfellow building, the big thing in the center of town, that's virtually falling down. So we're renting space for a town hall right now. Our police department is very inadequate. The senior center, library, they're all.
Are you saying you'd use the 2 buildings here, Millville?
No,
use
Millville
them?
No, so what we're saying is, if we move, I apologize.
The empty
Yeah.
Millville Elementary School.
So if we move
So
to
it's
just
3
occupy.
buildings you're talking about.
No, so if we
we
move
have
to
4.
occupy, I consider the
Currently have
complex.
4 buildings
Yeah.
for the district.
We consider it
One.
4 buildings. The JFK AFM building, we consider 1.
Oh,
Yeah, that we call it, it's the AFM
complex,
JFK
yes.
complex.
that's because it's more than 1.
It's attached.
Here's my question.
Yeah,
You say you're going to give it back to the town.
but we don't know what we're doing right now.
The town owns it anyway.
But they're not making money on it.
Right, but they've leased
Yeah,
it,
school
but
building.
they've leased it to us indefinitely. So they can't break those leases unless we,
So the
there's an
town,
agreement.
wait a minute,
The
I'm
town
confused
leases the
again.
building to the school department, correct?
So, okay.
Okay.
And then like Millville, we need a municipal building, so we'd probably
So you want
convert
the
the
school
empty
for-
school into a municipal building. But this
So-
would probably take 5 or 6 years at least.
Yeah.
Though the
It's not
towns
quick.
actually still have to insure the buildings themselves. The district insures the contents of the
So who-
buildings.
Now I'm just curious.
Well, there's still gonna
Who
be a
owns the
burden.
buildings?
The town still has to maintain those buildings.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what's this all gonna do to the tax base? Realistically, I'm hearing numbers, you're looking at $150 on the average per month per household in this town. These are the numbers I'm hearing.
Which is why we're here.
I'm not sure
Yeah.
where.
So when we.
Right.
Now,
That's why we're here.
that's a pretty heavy burden for anybody to cover. I don't care
Yeah.
if you're working, you're retired. That's a big nut. That's a big ask.
So that was the plan that we came up with, right? That's where this number's
That
coming
was a
from.
projection based on the plan that's the stepping off point.
Yeah.
So what happens with the facility studies, you take, you pick the school
That would-
that
That was
you
planned.
think will most benefit the
Yeah.
district
Per
if you
year.
move forward with it.
Okay.
And to get there, you need to write the master plan, which is what this group just finished doing. Part of the master plan is to say, if you take this building and you go in this direction, here's what it's projected to cost. And that's the number that you heard, was the entire project was.
My numbers are pretty close, so
Careful.
I'm not sure on the 150 a month.
No, that conversation was about the per $100,000
Per $100,000, so-
on the assessed home value.
Yeah.
And that was the annual, it was the annual,
Okay, so
so,
that's a little bit misinformation.
so like a, if we, that number, if you heard a 150 number, that's 150 per $100,000 of assessed value on your home per year. So if you have a $400,000 home, then that would be whatever,
You can imagine the reaction we got when we heard
$600 for the year, not
Okay, so
150 a
You're
month.
using a $400,000, so just for using your numbers, my taxes will go up $1,200, $1,300, $1,400 a year
That'd be about 600.
on a $400,000 house.
Yeah, so
My house
he's
is
saying
worth
it'd
twice
be
that.
150 per 100,000, so 400,000 would be $600 a year. And you're saying, so you're looking at an
Yeah.
$800,000 house?
Well, you're
I
looking.
wish.
Yeah, well, we're not far from it. And you're throwing a pretty heavy number out there for people.
Yeah, there's
But
a couple things to bear in mind with that. That is that's projected out at today's mill rate. So as you go forward and house value goes up, that drops as a relative amount of what you're paying. And so it's always painful as a starting point. But as you move forward, that number, the way it's projected, doesn't increase. So you could look at it as that's a flat payment. And if your mill rate changes, that one, the amount that you pay wouldn't change, even though the value of the house goes up and your income may or may not go up.
But you're still going to have that initial bump in your base tax.
Yes, you will have that, and it's done.
And that's to pay back, that's the balance.
That's to pay back the
What would-
bond,
yeah.
your share of the bond. And it goes through, it would be a tax override, so when it's done, it's done. It doesn't become part of your budget. And it is it's kind of the painful reality of this stuff, that somewhere along the line, you have to take care of the buildings, and whether you pay for it directly and repair the building you have there, you'll get relatively little money back from the state. They're not big on participating in that type of stuff. They have programs to do it, but it's for buildings that fit the right plan for the town. What you would see in savings is the operational costs of running 2 buildings as opposed to running 4. Because right now, your 4 buildings are too big for the number of students that you have. So you're bound to see operational cost savings. And if Millville and Blackstone take the control of those 2 buildings, you'll probably avoid costs for construction of buildings that both of those towns have identified a need for. So there's more to it than just the bond for the high school. There's a whole bunch of moving pieces, and part of what this group is getting ready to set off on is having this conversation with both towns.
Yeah.
Like, if Millville has identified a need for a town hall and a fire station and a police station. If they take back Millville Elementary School, the district and therefore the two towns avoid the cost of the improvements that are needed to that building to keep it as a school.
So
A
the
lot of
town
the-
absorb, so you're saying the
Right.
town, okay. I
And
just
a
wanna
lot
make
of the
sure I'm
improvements
following.
a lot of the improvements that are needed to keep it a school aren't needed to make it a municipal building. Same thing with the complex. So the town would avoid the costs of building new buildings to house those uses by taking those buildings back. Concurrent with the study to see what to do with the high school, the towns are encouraged to do studies to see what they could do with those two buildings. And it may be,
I'm sorry, what two buildings? The high school's one building?
no,
The
the
elementary schools.
The elementary.
The two elementary
So
schools.
each
Okay, sorry.
town has one elementary
Right.
school, so it just happens to work that if we were to use these two buildings, these are the two regional buildings, then Millville owns the Millville Elementary School and Blackstone owns the two, the
Yes,
complex.
that's,
I call it
honestly,
one.
that's what keeps throwing me. I
Yeah,
have
no,
to
it's
keep
okay.
reminding myself.
We look at
people
it
don't know how to
as
count.
one elementary, the one in Millville, the one
Yeah.
elementary in Blackstone, and then we have the two regional buildings, the middle and the high
Here in the
school.
high school,
Yeah.
right. Right, okay.
So the moving pieces get to be a little bit more in number in the coming eight months or so. And then it gets to be a little bit more readily understood if Millville council steps up and says, this is what we'll do with the building. And then the costs that are associated with that are on that spreadsheet that I gave you go away from the responsibility of the school district. So that cost comes down.
From the school.
Right. Yeah, same thing with the complex. If Blackstone says, this is what we'll do with this building, then those costs come off of here. Now, granted, some of those costs are going to transfer over to the town, because you're still going to have to do something to those buildings, but it will come down considerably, because what you need to do for a school is far and above what you need to do for virtually anything else, because of the fact that you stick 200 or 300 little kids in there every day.
And where, you're going to put them here?
The plan that this group is promoting is to take this building and make it pre-K through 5. It needs no additions to it. It needs some modifications to the lower level that are driven by state code for little guys. And then to look at the high school site as the starting point to study renovation or replacement of the high school.
Yeah, well, I'm 100% behind whatever has to be done with the high school. I have a million other questions about putting the kids up.
Going over here.
And they're just questions. I don't take them as challenges, but right away my brain goes to, where do the kids have recess?
For here? Well, part of the thinking on this is you own the field out back, you
Okay.
need playground equipment.
Yeah.
It's a relatively small cost. You need to have separate playgrounds for 2 through 5-year-olds and 5 through 12-year-olds, which is arguable that you don't have it right now properly. Part of the thinking is to put 2 through 5 on that end of the building. They're relatively small playgrounds. And to put pre-K through 1 on the lower level. It has its own entrance doors, and it stays out of the staircases,
Yeah,
which is
I only know
what
this
we're after.
this in the gym at this building, so
Yeah,
we
if you-
do have
if-
to
Most
do
people
it.
know of it, right?
Oh, and I think I
You
was
see
in the
the front- you
cafeteria.
see the front of the library
I think I
or
was down there once,
Or
but,
the gym.
If you walk one floor, you know the other two. Yeah, so-
well, I'm just saying, like, that's all there is, like, there's no upstairs or downstairs.
So-
All right,
so
then,
the-
I just
so
have
this
lots of
site works
questions,
pretty
I just
well.
have lots of
Yeah,
logistic
this site
questions,
works well
but,
for that age because they don't need a big field. Yeah, and they run out of energy. I always say if you put first graders in a basketball court, they run out of energy by mid-court, and then they all come back. So this building actually works quite well for that. And if you compare it to what the state would participate in to build for pre-K 5, this building actually fits into that format quite well.
I don't know, just curious question, because of my brain. I know we have staggered openings in town.
Mm-hmm.
So how would that work? Okay, would they all show up at the same time? Or would you
For-
still have staggered opening? Just again, it's my brain.
those
The
are-
logistics of
Logistics are
pre-K
Great
5.
questions,
Kids
right?
from
We
this one
we
building.
don't have the
Yeah,
logistics.
right, this is the wrong,
being
but,
figured out right now.
yeah.
Well,
That's what I'm thinking.
I'm the
'cause
right
they-
person to be asking.
So,
I just don't
yeah,
have
what's
that
interesting,
detail
we have
right now.
staggered starts because we have
The multiple
same buses
buildings.
going to different buildings.
Right.
But if we had the same buses going to the same buildings, you could have the high school, middle school start at the same time, and then the elementary schools could start at the same time, which actually makes it easier.
We would-
Okay, well,
Yeah.
that's where I was going,
Staggered,
because
two
like,
instead of four.
Yeah.
That is what I would hope to.
You would
to
have-
see.
Yeah,
so you're saying, what'd you say, pre-K 5 here?
Yep.
yeah.
Okay, so you'd have pre-K 5 kids on the buses.
Which is
all
what
at
you
the
have
same
now.
time.
That's what they do now.
Yeah. Well, no pre-K.
Not pre-K,
No
it's
pre-K.
K through
Yeah,
5
they-
currently.
they get driven.
And 6 through 12 are currently on the
Are
buses
currently on the
together.
bus.
And they do
together.
two stops. They come here.
This?
This is the middle school.
This is 6, 7, and 8.
6, 7,
6, 7, 8.
And this
And
building,
runs.
and this building is
So
more
it'd go
than
down to
half.
2 runs.
more than
No,
half
there's only
empty.
2 runs now. There's 2 runs. So the high school and middle school travel in a bus together.
Oh,
go
they
to-
open-
They go to the high school students get off, then they come over to here. This is why there's a staggered start between those 2. And then those same buses go pick up all the K to
Yep.
5
Yep.
and go to those 2 schools.
And,
Got
and
it.
the 2 elementaries used to be on the same schedule, except when we made it so that they were actually regionalized, and now we have both Blackstone and Millville students in Millville, and Blackstone and Millville students at the complex.
Oh, is
We-
that right?
Yep.
It's been a while this year.
It's new.
We staggered,
okay,
we
that's
staggered,
okay.
no,
It's been a
brand-
while.
it's brand new.
I mean, the last time, well, never
But we
mind.
staggered those times to allow for parents to make it between the 2 buildings.
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah.
if they have a child in the early elementary level,
Right,
and then at the
right.
middle elementary level, then they can get back and forth.
So this is actually an easier
streamline
plan
that.
for families.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because you get two buildings, 2 starts.
No, right away I was going to cost a bus, like, it's just my brain, it's
There's
just,
transport, no, there's,
Yeah.
that's the
So it
thing,
actually
there's a ton of
cuts it
things
back.
that need to be
Yeah, it cuts it back,
factored
and
in.
those age groups were already on a bus together.
didn't know that,
Yeah.
thanks. Okay.
The other thing that
Real time, I think.
can throw people, we talk pre-K through 13 in anticipation of pre-K being mandated by the state sometime in the future, so you want to plan for it. And 13 because virtually every high school in the state runs a continuation or transition program.
Yeah.
Do that.
Yeah, in this case, what do you have, nine
We have-
kids or 13 kids?
Yeah, we have about
To
13
age 22.
till age 22.
Yeah, so we call it grade 13 in planning talk.
I know those kids.
Yeah, so you'll hear pre-K 13.
Students with more significant needs.
I know, I didn't realize any of what you just said, but I know the population you're talking
Yeah.
about.
Yeah, so as you see it out in public, people are going to go, well, you don't do pre-K now. You're probably going to be doing pre-K within 3 to 5 years, as everyone's
But you do
thinking.
have you have.
Yes.
Right, I
Hey,
mean, like-
it's a pay to attend,
Yeah.
Yeah, but as a
it's
mandated
essentially a
part of
pretty
the-
full pre-K program.
Yeah,
So you are anticipating the state will do what they did.
it's going to happen before too much longer.
Yeah.
At the very least, you have to program space for it, whether you use it that way or not. It's very similar to
What they did to
kindergarten space
kindergarten,
anyway, so it's pretty easy to program.
Yeah. It's been a
Okay, there
while.
has to be more. You said
Yeah, I
you
was going
had
to say,
any
you had a
questions?
ton of
You
questions.
answered a
Well,
lot of the
well,
questions before I even asked them. No, my head was spin, I taught for a lot of years, and I've been retired for a lot of years, so, and my kids have been out of school for even more. So you just caught me up a lot. I just got, like, it's been 20 years, I think, since
By all
anybody in
means,
the.
stay and think whatever other questions
it's
No,
just-
you
no,
guys.
don't
I
stay
taught-
because then he's going to try to get you to come back to teach.
Well,
We've seen
I
this happen.
taught elementary, at the elementary level, which is why my brain immediately went to, well, they have to have recess, they have to have
Yeah,
bathroom,
yeah.
you know, like all that stuff, so,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
it was just,
And I love it, I love it when the adults in the community start thinking about the needs of the kids right off the bat. I'm like, yes, you're right, they do.
no,
They
it's,
need that.
it's always, everything in life, there's more to it than what.
And again, I also respect, there's people without children that don't want their taxes to go up, and I respect that. We completely
We've lived in
understand.
town for a really long time,
35 years we've been in town.
yeah, so it's like, okay.
Yep,
Yeah.
Must have been one of the first houses up at Liberty Hill,
third one.
Third one, yeah.
right down on Milk, so.
Oh, yeah, on Milk Street? Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
we've
we were
been,
the, we were the third ones up there, and
we
we're
moved
still
here, our
there.
taxes were $1,200 a year.
Mine
But I
was
mean, it's like,
$7,000 now.
but- What are you going to do?
See my plight?
But I won't ask you what you paid for the house.
When I built it?
Yeah.
Don't say it on TV.
It's getting recorded, but it's not live, at least.
We can't
It's
have
all public, it's all public knowledge.
It's all right, it's all right. That's where we are, that's where we are. And we,
I'm sure it was a good investment, though.
it was,
It was.
it was.
It was very
It's
good.
our retirement plan.
That's it. That's it.
Isn't everybody's?
For many, I was going
No,
to say for many.
but then you get to, that's another whole
Mine
different
is
meeting.
sell, move to south. you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Not
what
for
it's
several years now, Scott.
we spent 2
Were you
weeks.
in MTRS?
It is several.
Did you teach in Massachusetts?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so were you part of the teacher retirement system?
Yep.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
His next
Yep, I
pitch
do.
is, do you want to come back?
I did okay.
I don't want to hear that they're failing to
do okay,
provide
but I
their
don't wanna give
pension
it to you
system
guys.
because
Is that yours?
that's my pension system too.
Right,
I'm
that's
like,
right.
wait a
It's a
second,
good
if the
one.
only retirement you have is your house, what happened to
No,
MTRS?
no, but I mean, when, you know, you got
Oh, I
the kid on
know.
the hip and the kid by the hand and they're building this house, you're like, oh my gosh, you
Let's
know.
be clear now, you're not giving it to us, you're giving it to the children.
Well, all right. But
I'll give you
anyway,
my children.
yeah. No, the
You're
adult
adult, they got
ones.
different
Well, so
problems.
actually, the two of you can be, I'm sure, very, very helpful in the conversation that we're having this evening, because the bulk of what our discussion tonight is where do we need to get to bring our message and our communication? And what are we looking to bring to each constituency, right?
I
You know?
actually have another question. I heard that one of the reasons for all of this juggling around is because of a decline in student population.
Yeah, from
Yeah, we
the
did-
beginning, absolutely.
There was a demographic and enrollment study done. So we studied both towns and the population trends in both towns, and then we looked at the likely forecast for enrollment. And so you've seen, in round numbers, and I've got everything in this neat little computer here, but you've dropped about 400 students in the previous decade, and you forecast a drop of about 200 and something in the coming decade. And
Is it
it's-
a population? Like, what is the drop, what is the cause of the drop, I guess is my question.
Well, the demographics show that you're staying just about level, and the number of people in both,
Veteran community.
in both
Nobody
towns.
ever calls me.
That's what they all say. So you're forecast to stay just about even population-wise, but you're aging.
Right.
Your only two growing pieces is 55 and up. So we do 55 to 65, 65
Yep.
and higher. Those are the only two population groups that are growing. The mass exodus is from age 18 to age 55. And so at 55, you start coming back or you're not leaving. But your biggest exodus is graduation of high school to 40 years old. So you're either leaving for a job or you're leaving for college, and either way, you're not coming back.
Families, you're
Yep.
saying, are moving out.
Yeah, so you're decreasing and then leveling out. So part of what the study looked for was to establish schools that had capacity to accept either a minor uptick or a minor downtick in population. And by minor, you're talking about in a school of 700 kids, adding close to 100 kids. It would be considered minor. So that leads you to look at particular buildings, and this building's one of those, that if you put the target population of 750 kids in here, you have the ability to absorb another 100 across that grade range. And then you would size the high school to be able to do the same thing. So that takes care of the concern of someone's going to build a development with 40 houses. And typically, a development will bring in about 0.57 kids per house. It's not a 1-to-1 ratio anymore. It's not even 2-to-1 like it was in the baby boom. The biggest drivers of increase in enrollment is a manufacturer or business moves into town and brings a lot of their employees from out of area, because those people who are willing to move typically come with kids. So we don't see any of that forecast.
Cannabis shops have not been bringing in.
No, it's not to bring the kids in.
We were
Usually just a
surprised.
couple of people working at them.
So it leads me to my next question is, so the children who live in town, how many of them go to school here?
A lot of,
Yeah, pretty good.
But I mean, what's the school choice
Yeah,
numbers?
who's choicing out?
I don't have the numbers on hand, but our population is still in the 1,400
Is it a
range.
bleed or does it balance?
We are losing.
We have more,
netting.
we have more that go out than come in. We do have some that come in. We have more than go out. And I would say it's about, it's not, it used to be about 2/3 out and 1/3 in, and it's come closer.
So,
It's not 50/50.
Yeah, I think you're about 60/40.
Yeah.
With who goes out and who comes in.
Yep.
And you could probably hope to catch, you probably hope to get even, if not a little bit more in favor of the towns by better career path offerings at the high school. Just a better building to start with.
I know.
Then better career choice or wider career choice, which Jason, Dr. DeFalco has done a wonderful job with his administrative team of offering courses across the entire Blackstone Valley at the high school level, and they're moving that down. Very forward-thinking and moving your educational career path offerings down further, not to cement a kid into that path, but to expose them to it.
Yeah.
But then there's no place for them to go. So they're looking at this building, and that's great, and then they look at the high school and go, well, I gotta get out of here. So that's one way. The other way is to bring outplaced special ed children back in, which are very expensive.
Yes.
And the third one is to start to team up so that it's with the colleges, so that you're starting to offer in 11th and 12th grade college curriculum offerings. So all of that's in play, and it's going to be like packing the car and getting ready to go to California and realize the car will get you to Pennsylvania maybe, and that's the high school. That's
But
the
to your
Like when
point,
we packed the car to bring someone to college and we didn't leave enough room for her.
That was not a good day.
It's like, oh, here's
not
what
a
we
good
forgot.
start, not a good start to that. That's right. But to your point, yeah, we certainly do have students that are, part of that exodus, and we're trying to stop that.
Yeah.
And part of this, master plan is really to design a school system that will really service the kids in this community.
I would encourage that,
for
too.
many years to come, not just for right now. And, the numbers of kids I don't know, but I can tell you, last night we just were speaking about our budget. And we have approximately like a $30 million budget for the district. And a lot of that is operating,
Yeah.
salaries, and benefits. So you can imagine the
That's it.
small amount that really is the curriculum and the instructional supplies and those things. And between our school choice students and our charter school students that are leaving, the district is losing $1.5 million
Yeah,
in the upcoming fiscal year.
yeah.
And we recoup a small amount of that, but we will net loss over $1 million.
That hurts too.
That's big.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
It's a lot of things we could be doing.
Fine. Honestly, like we
Yeah,
were
this is
saying,
great.
those questions help because we
No,
are trying
these
to
are
plan.
super helpful because we're actually at the juncture where we
need to
want
know what people are
we
thinking
want to
about-
start reaching out to the
No,
communities, and we need to know.
It drives
the
me
budget.
crazy. We do, which is why we're
And
both
that's
here.
okay, that's okay, though.
It's one thing to have, hear something.
Right.
And then be in your living room and and
Yeah.
that's why I said, I can't be talking to people without
Love it.
knowing what I'm talking about, so.
Thank you for coming and getting the actual answers too. That's
And you're, those evil people at the schools, they're going to raise our day. It's like, I'm just trying to, I'm just trying to do what's right for the kids.
and then part of it comes down to, for me, something I keep taking away from this is the big project, the SOI that we're putting in, and what we've come up with was as the suggestion for these two buildings comes down to what, approximately 60 million if we get the grants with the
Hit or miss, yeah.
with the discount of the grant. That packet right there is 60 million
Actually,
or more. It went up, right?
That,
It was
that
like
one's
85.
80
That-
right
that's- see,
now.
that's why that's what he
So we're gonna, in the long run, we have to spend this money on these buildings, but if we can spend it more wisely and get improvements and change the high school, make it bigger and able to offer more, make it prettier.
it does need
one
a
of the things
does.
one of the things I said, I don't know who I said it to, where I was, but this was being discussed. I was, and the school choice came up, and I said, the for better or for worse, a new building attracts people. You could put in the building, and they're going to come,
So-
which, you know,
So the town of Uxbridge built a new high school. Had huge numbers of school choice
Choice,
that
yeah.
first year. Didn't, in their plan, have enough money to get desks and chairs and whatever in the high school.
look, I know
So
that
literally
firsthand.
brought the old stuff in there, and those people who choiced in
Yep.
didn't end up staying very long.
I don't know how. I was still teaching, and Hopedale put a big, their elementary school, they put a huge, renovated the building and a
Oh, yeah.
huge addition back, I don't know when, 90-something, I don't know when it was.
90s.
And it was, you know, we're going through, we're taking tours, and we're loving it. We got this elbow space we need, we got everything we need, and a town, school choice, 50 kids to that one building,
That's a
one
lot.
year.
That's a lot.
All of a sudden, we had no more room. We were teaching in the hallways again, we were in the closets again, so that's why I say that.
Well, and we talk about a facelift. I know I'm an idealist, but I envision if this all went right, this could be a facelift for the entire community.
Yeah.
For both towns, because if something positive comes out of Millville Elementary, and that becomes a great gem for the town where it's a safety center or a senior center, something great, you know, there's a ton of space there. It's could be
Well,
used.
and you want families
Same thing
with
with the
kids.
complex. Same thing with the complex. That's a really valuable space, and it's pretty well located in Blackstone.
Yeah.
So what are the uses for that? And I know that the town has some.
Sports complex.
Yeah.
Well, it has
Well,
all
we
the
could get our
fields.
youth sports, we could get our youth
Get our
sports
youth programs
programs
ramped up.
really ramped up, and then that'll feed the district too. So I'm looking at it as this facelift for every aspect of the community, the
Well,
two
and you do.
towns and the school
You
system.
want to attract young families.
Right.
And usually the first thing they look at is the school system.
The schools, yeah.
Absolutely.
And then it's public safety and services,
Yeah,
right? So,
really.
So the things that we're speaking about are the top two tiers of what everyone is interested in. And yes, admittedly, it comes at an expense, but the hope too is property values stay up and continue to rise, as opposed to as a school system, if it continues on a downward trend and these buildings don't get addressed, people won't want to, people won't want to move into the community.
It's just the truth.
It's just the
It's just
truth. I
the
hate to
reality
say
of it,
anything
yeah.
negative, but
Right,
it's.
no, it's just the
it is.
reality,
It
it's
is.
human nature, it's just the way it is. Everybody wants the best for their kids, and so that's what they look for.
Was that the one other
I-
question? No, because if you've got more, please.
Yeah,
they
trying to figure
We-
out what
this is
questions
great.
people
So,
have.
but we still have to, I think, address your question.
His,
Because I feel like I can answer yours all day long. Like, I
talk
we can go
education to
there.
me and you're good.
But how do we address I own the house.
Yeah.
And my taxes
Oh.
potentially are going up $1,200. Like, how do we get people to see they probably are whether we do A or whether we do B? Like, they probably are.
But I think she just said it
That's
though,
They're
also,
going up.
with the property taxes.
Right.
I mean, younger families are gonna come in because of the buildings. So if the property tax is still high, the younger family's gonna come in because the school district is wonderful.
right.
Well,
They'll see that. as a-
there is
they'll
enough
see that.
data about the negative impact of a substandard school district,
That's right.
which is typically tied to facilities, not to curriculum offerings. You see it tied to curriculum offerings generally in urban settings, but in suburban settings, it's generally tied to the condition of the buildings and what's offered around you. And unfortunately, you're kind of an island amongst a bunch of newer buildings in other districts. There's also a lot of data showing the increase of property values when the buildings are addressed. And so the thing with school districts is you can't run away from the buildings if you want to still be a school district. And you can't unincorporate your school district unless someone wants to take you in, and none of the towns around here want to do that.
Right.
The only state that's managed to do
That's
that
never
was
gonna
Maine,
happen down.
which just started saying to districts,
Yep.
you guys are now a region. So you kind of work into that conundrum of what you have needs a big investment. And if you escalate that out, even at 4%, you're over 140, almost $150 million in 20 years. And that's with very little state aid. They're not, their programs to fix and repair, the accelerated repair program is what they call it, is to take care of buildings like this. You know, this needs a boiler, or this needs windows, or this needs a roof.
This building does?
No, just in general, just saying out loud.
This building's new.
Yeah, hypothetically.
I know it's really not, but it feels like it is.
Believe it or not, it's gonna need a roof.
Yeah, how old is this? We were arguing about that.
20
too.
years.
18 years.
Yeah.
I said 20.
You did say 20, I said 10.
Yeah, it's, so
18,
it's,
going on 19. It was
yeah, so it's coming up on needing some investment, and that's where the state would participate. If you were to go to them with the high school and say, we'd really like to do the windows here, they'd look at it and go, meh, we don't
Right,
want to
right.
participate.
That's like
Why
us
would we
with
do
windows
that?
in our house. It's like,
So they'll,
you got to get the return.
yeah, so they'll look at it. They're a funding agency that's founded on education. So they want to make sure that what they invest in is a
Right.
sound educational place. And we get a lot of questions of why would you pick the most expensive building? Well, it gets you the most money back. And it overall reduces your project costs the most. So if it's a $110 million project and the state share is hit or miss 55% overall, you do the math, you're paying about $48 million on a $110 million project. If you took that and did it over, and that's a 20-year run on the bond, or a 30-year run on the bond, but it's a 20-year program. If you did that over 20 years, it's $145 million, and maybe there's $4 or $5 million from the state. So that's the discussion of the costs relative to it, because you'll pay the same amount of money whether you bond that, everything that's on that list, or do it a combination of grouping projects and bonding it and doing the rest on annual budget. You'll end up spending far more money on a capital campaign than you will replacing a building with the state's assistance.
You got to make it
So
not
that's
hurt
what
the
we, but
pocket.
that's what we have to get people to understand.
Understand,
That
that's a
has
lot.
to be in black and white somehow with dollars or something attached,
And,
because
you know-
that's the piece.
With the current economy right now,
I was just
that's
gonna
gonna be
say
a
that,
tough sell.
you
for
know?
Tough sell, and
It's a tough
that's,
sell.
it's gotta,
Because that's what
It's a
people-
matter of principle
That's
with me
the
because
first
of
thing you did,
God, all we
looked
do
at the
is pay.
bottom line.
Yeah.
Didn't
Yeah,
look,
I
you
look
know.
at
I mean, we all do, right?
Yeah, we understand that.
Yep. I look at the money, she looks at everything else.
The other thing on this is
we got it.
We started down the road before of talking about the number that was put out there of 110 hit or miss. The feasibility study, when it comes out for a request for proposals, is going to show a range probably between 30 and 120 or 40 and 120. The state doesn't want to presuppose that you're going to just go forward with the program that was picked up here. So they'll look at, within their data banks, they'll look at what might it cost just to renovate that building over there. Just go in and just fix what's hurt with it. And that will be set as the lower number. And then they'll say, what would it be if we built a completely new building, took that building down, and didn't realign, like kept all three buildings working and just built a new building, and that'll be the upper end of the range. And then the group that does the feasibility study may or may not be this group. You have to form a building committee. They work with consultants to figure out what's the most educationally sound and cost-effective way to deliver it, so that everyone gets hung up on that 100 million and it's done on purpose. It's to get to set the upper end, so that that's what people are talking about. So when you start talking about, yeah, maybe it's a $70 million project, then you're saying, okay, if it's not 100, I get it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's 70. 70 is still a lot of money, but schools are incredibly expensive to build, and they're not getting any cheaper. Yeah.
You know? That's what I'm saying. As soon as, you hear things like that, it's
Well, the first time I heard it, I thought it sounded so ridiculous, I just dismissed it. I said, that is not even, there's no way that that's.
it's the educator.
But you've been in that high school, correct?
Oh, no, yeah,
Well, again, it's been a while. That's why I'm, whatever, yes.
yes.
Back in the days when we were down,
Oh, it was
stomping our
not
feet through
68,
there.
wasn't it?
Yeah.
And not much
No,
has been done
that's,
to it.
that's a, that's
Very
that's an
little.
obvious,
enough to keep it open.
Yeah.
That's another thing.
barely.
I was going to
How do we
say,
make sure we do maintenance plans all the way through?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm a big fan of maintenance.
Yeah.
And that's
It'd
where
be a
this
hell of a lot cheaper to
20-year
have
plan.
That's where,
anyways.
yeah, and that's where
And
this
you let
comes
go,
in.
So now the burden's on us, anybody in the town, to fix the problem that someone else, just let it go.
Correct.
It'll be all right. It's okay.
And some of it was let it go, and a lot of it was no one, like, they're gonna, like, we've gotten turned down for those extra costs when we've talked about them at the school committee
Yeah.
tables.
It'd be
And
a lot-
we just know, like, this wasn't the year to ask the
Once.
town for this. They're not gonna, they can't afford it this year. We can't afford it this year either, but we have to put it.
Yeah, now look.
You have to, yeah.
And
So now you got
exactly,
20 years
now
if
look
we
at
can't
it.
afford it.
We can't afford it, we can't
It's
afford it, we
just-
can't afford it. It's like, well, what do
We
you?
can't afford it,
We can't afford not
And now
to.
it's,
We can't.
Building's falling down.
you're in a pickle.
And for a long time, it was like, okay, we have X amount of dollars. Do we lay off 3 teachers, or do we maintain the building? And the building always got shorted,
Yeah,
year after year after year. And this is where we are now.
yep.
And it all comes down to nobody wants their taxes to go up.
Well,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah. Well, a little hike could be a lot better than a big hike, because your taxes go up every year anyway.
But the little hike at the time seems like a big hike.
Yeah, when you open up the envelope.
When you open up that envelope.
I dread seeing that envelope come in.
Yeah, yeah.
I let it sit on my counter for days.
Yeah.
before-
He does not, he comes in screaming.
Right.
Even the water bill
But
came the other day, and I was
with a
like,
hand
oh,
truck
do I
this year.
open? No, we don't have that one.
They gotta go
We
well.
don't have that one.
Well, and septic.
They send yours by drone. They're like, I ain't going up to the door. I ain't ringing that doorbell.
No, it's
I
just,
completely
you know,
understand
we've worked
what
hard,
the
you know.
end goal is here. I understand that. It's just the cost is, everything's expensive now.
Yeah.
But at a time where
the-
everything, right now, I mean, a lot of seniors, we're in a different situation, but there's a lot of seniors who are
Can't
property
afford it.
owners in this
Fixed
town.
income.
It's gonna kill them.
Well, and that's what the demographics showed us. There are a lot of,
I mean, we're an
aged.
older population town, and some of these people, I mean, they're just squeaking by now. How are you gonna burden them with, even an extra 50 or $100 a month in their tax base?
Yeah, it is, that's the tough piece of this, and the state doesn't make it any easier because once you start down the road, you get 2 tries at passing what will be 2 years out or something, of passing the actual construction bond. You get 1 try, if it fails, you get 90 days to put it out again. And if it doesn't pass, the chance of you getting back into their program right now is another 5 or 6 years down the road.
So you got 8 years.
Yeah, so if it fails,
You gotta hang on.
you have to start doing stuff on that
Yeah,
list
that way,
pretty darn
exactly.
quickly, because,
You're back to, it's a little too much, it's a little too
And
much,
you're
we
certain-
can't afford it, and eventually these
And at this
places are
point,
just
I
gonna
mean,
crumble.
The high school's
school
hanging
will-
on.
Yeah,
Like,
barely.
I mean,
The high
we're not
schools-
gonna get
the high
10 years
schools
out of the high
needed
school without some
No.
good money being
It
spent.
does, the high school needs help.
Yeah, it has, and it has
does.
for a long
Yeah.
time.
yeah.
We, like I said, I'm out, you can knock it down and build a new one, and that's okay, as far as I'm concerned.
The other thing, too, is I think
send the
we're
bill
hitting an
your way.
unfortunate time where we are in an inflationary kind of
Crazy.
crisis moment for people. And we have to remind people that we're not talking, this
About
is on
next
your
week.
tax bill tomorrow.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not next week.
Or next week, or next
You
year.
gotta give them a time frame.
Yeah.
Right now, people are worried about paying for their oil.
Well, that's
I mean, it's
it.
almost $4 a gallon
Yeah.
right the truck.
That's it.
It's crazy.
Gas pump, $4
So
a
it's
gallon.
almost like we gotta,
Yeah.
That is a good point, though.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
one we haven't really talked
do
about.
need to
Yeah.
talk about.
You gotta-
something.
you
Somewhere that's getting
This
hit their
isn't today,
pocketbook.
this isn't
Maybe
today,
5 years from now.
tomorrow, or even.
or next year.
Yeah.
Right, right.
If you're projecting 3 or 4 years
Which is
down the
not
road,
what we, that wasn't our understanding either.
no, if you're projecting.
We thought it was going to be
3
next week.
3 or 4
Yeah.
years down the road,
next
like my
meeting
next
is-
tax bill's gonna come in and, oh Jesus, I'm gonna be down to town hall hooting and hollering. But if it's 3 or 4 years down the road,
It's at least.
People can start
Hopefully things
preparing.
And at least you can plan a little more
It's a
and.
feasibility
it'll come
study, but the
down.
you
town
wanna
should
sell
be
and
able
leave
to
town,
afford
well, you got
that.
time to leave.
Yeah.
Gotta find someplace to go.
Yeah, I know.
We were in the market for 2 weeks. We did it for 2 weeks, we're like, oh,
2 weeks.
we're going home.
Forget it.
Well, the sad part is whatever you get for your house, you're gonna invest in another house.
In another one. It's-
Well,
You're gonna-
Probably half as
You're gonna
big.
buy
Oh,
half.
probably not as
That's what we
big,
were looking
yeah.
for. We figured we'd sell, find some, downsize, it's just the two of us,
House is
downsize,
huge.
and buy it outright. Well, that, we went out in the
There's
real
nothing to
world, and
find.
that is
Really?
not what's
Yeah,
happening,
there's
so we
nothing
went back to, we went back home.
I said, the hell with it.
It's just, we'll
Then the
stay
tax
here.
bill came.
Take it again, huh?
Mine was to go down south, but real estate down south is shot up too,
You look
because
down the Cape.
Oh, the cable.
Well, but that's which we figured, but we figured it'd be pretty
Doable.
Yeah.
We'd get what we wanted,
Get
even
half
though
of what we have.
it'd be less for the same price.
Yeah.
But anything within our price range
My
needed,
in-laws
Get a
just moved
cape
to
on the cape
Centerville.
for that price.
Well, they're looking at 700
not
grand.
without another like
No, no,
100,000.
no,
For a house probably a
fix it.
quarter
Yeah,
the
that-
size of what you're living in now,
house.
for the same
Needs all
cost
kinds
on
of
the
updates,
Cape.
too.
Yeah,
Oh my God,
A
people
house
do
that's
not
fallen
take care
down
of their
for
property.
800,000.
Absolutely. We ran out of a couple, they were so bad.
Oh my God, and we finally said to the realtor, we're gonna stay where we are. We're just gonna stay.
I'm going home.
Who will live at
We
the
built it, I
BMR?
know what I have.
Yeah.
But really, a lot of people think it's going to happen.
Well, and I think that's a message we have to, like, I think we have to.
Explain the
to
timeframe.
not only show a timeline, but what is, here's the potential impact as we know more, worst case scenario, best case scenario, however you want it, or all of the above. But, you know, we don't even hear until June, July, if we know anything. We don't get on town things for a feasibility study until November, special town meetings, or 270 days. It could even be
Yeah,
spring.
use July this year as a starting date for when the
Right.
state invites you in. It's 270 days before you need to fund the feasibility study. So that's out in 2023 to fund that. So say that's $1 million just to get the number closer to where it should be. In 2023, the towns would be asked to pick up that cost. Then you would go, typically feasibility study would be between a year and 18 months. So that puts you out into early 2025.
Yeah.
And then you would see a project come to you to vote to fund the whole project. So let's say at that point, it's $100 million and the state picks up 55% of it. So you've got a $45 million bond that you have to split between the two towns. That bond wouldn't be sold probably until the second year of construction, so 2027. You would do short-term borrowing prior to that. So you wouldn't see a full,
I think we need to do exactly
Yeah,
that, a
that's- yeah.
timeline.
A timeline.
I was doing pretty well until you interrupted me.
Sorry. There goes our timeline. There goes our timeline.
I got it. I'm just going to take a snapshot, and this is, we're going to,
I lost the theme.
Where people
So
see
we
it.
were in 27.
It's probably 2027.
And I'm thinking how old I'm gonna be.
Yeah, 2027 is probably
move before that.
I think to your point, that helps somebody say, okay, I know this isn't coming tomorrow, I know it's not coming next year, so yeah, it may increase me $1,200, but if I start thinking, okay,
Yeah, it won't
200
be a
this year,
shock.
200
That's
next
the
year,
big
200
thing. You need
whatever.
it to not have
Yeah,
the
it needs
shock
to not be a
value.
shock.
I'm sure 22 years ago, when this building was going through the process of being built, people were sitting here saying the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
How are we gonna afford this? Now, it's not even a second thought. It's here.
It's already here and you've lived with it.
Yeah.
And people who were concerned about that cost aren't here anymore. You know, they've.
Yeah, in a lot of
moved on.
cases, you're true, you're right.
You know, and so now it's up to the people who are still here
We're
to,
here, yeah.
and at a higher cost, and with the problems we're having. And then you gotta figure when you do for that study, that's gonna be a line item on the town budget, correct, for that year?
Yes.
So what, you're gonna have to budget in somewhere between $800 and $1 million.
Yeah, or,
That's a big nut.
yeah, it probably wouldn't qualify for a Prop 2.5. It's probably just going to be an ask at a town meeting. And once again, if it doesn't pass, and that's pretty much the end of the project at that point, unless you find a way to
They
fund
shut
it.
down the study.
Yeah.
Yeah, because of
Yeah,
all
you
that.
start to play higher and higher stakes as this moves along, but yeah, we need to work out a timeline for when you would expect to see this come online, and then you compare that to bonded debt that's coming offline.
Right,
And
you're gonna have.
yeah, you have some.
Maturing.
Blackstone doesn't have much because you did this building as.
This building is minimal.
Yeah, so this building's just about gone, and the last MSBA stuff you did as, it wasn't an exclusion, so it's part of your taxes.
Yeah.
So you don't, if you go through your tax bill, you won't find a bond for the MSBA work at the complex. Millville
was that for
did.
the roof?
Yeah.
That was almost
And the windows and doors.
Yeah, windows and doors, everything else. So that's actually in, from what I understand of
Was that
how
two-
that was funded.
I'm sorry, was that two bonds on that? One for
Yes,
the roof
two
and one
different
for the window?
projects.
Two different projects,
Yeah.
correct.
And as I understand it, those were not exclusionary funding, they were in your taxes. So when they're paid, you won't see a tax reduction. They're just built into the taxes now.
Never.
I didn't even have to say that.
35 years.
Congratulations.
Has that ever happened anywhere in the world?
I don't know.
Excise tax when your car gets older.
Yeah, well, it's like that, or if you have a debt exclusion bond, and it's set up the way we ran well, Lynn ran it, but I'll take credit for it tonight because she's not here. The way this was forecast out, you would actually see a reduction in your tax bill when this was paid off, when the bond for that project was paid off. Just as a side note, I was director of facilities in town in Connecticut, and their council and town manager and board of finance would adjust by 1/4% up or down, 0.5% up or down every year on taxes. And they never had a problem going up because on good years they'd go down. It
Well, they actually did,
was really
yeah.
well done. It's the only town I've ever worked with that would do that on an annual basis. They never played a game. I said, yeah, this is how we did. Here's all the numbers like we did last night. And if it got to the end of it and it said, we can reduce taxes by 1/4%, they did. Good for them.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's good.
That's good.
When they reevaluate, that always seems to go the other way.
I know, doesn't it?
I've never seen it go down.
It never happened when I was there.
But I think, like I say, a timeline and with hard figures.
Yeah, as close as you can get them at
As
this
close as
point.
you can get. I mean,
Yeah,
you-
best
you
case,
gotta hit
worst
us with a-
case
You gotta hit
kind
us
of
with a
thing.
real figure, not something that, you could be from here to here. I mean, that's,
No, that's the next, that's the feasibility study when it comes out. But as I said, you try to set a real number so you can put real figures to it. And so everything that we've given is based on the current MSBA costs and escalated out, I think, 2 years or something. So we should be, you've got a good number to work with for the project as defined as the starting point for understanding
And
it.
I'm feeling, just from this conversation, right, maybe part of what we need to explain to the community is we've set this bar at the high end so that it's realistic. We're expecting that's maybe the maximum, right? It could be significantly less. However, if we don't get into the feasibility study,
yeah.
then we're never going to know about that, and we're just going to get hit with all of that.
all the
Yeah.
repairs.
With
Because this
no,
is gonna
with
happen
no
anyway.
grant.
Yeah, this is gonna happen
Because that's
anyway.
got to happen
Those
anyway.
have to happen.
So now you're looking at over the course of years, that's over $100 million worth of repairs that nobody's going to give us much for. I mean, MSBA has accelerated repair programs that they'll do typically roofs and boilers and windows. And they've actually, I think they've gone away from roofs recently.
Yeah.
They're like, we're done with roofs. So they mainly focus on boilers and windows.
Because
So there might be a couple of $1
million.
million in there that we could get some kind of grants for, but we're not talking about a 55% reimbursement on an entire
So
project.
I haven't looked at this, and you can tell me to shut up.
Oh, no.
But I'm just curious,
Okay.
what are the repairs that are needed at the complex and/or here? I'm just, again, just because I don't know.
Yeah, complex is, the simple things are sidewalks, playgrounds, and you'll see in that list, they're rated, there's a priority, the second column in, that's its importance to education, and the second column in is what kind of condition it's in. So the a rating of 1 through 4, 1 is the most important to educational operation, and then 1 through 5 is from best to worst, or most needy to least needy. So if you've got an issue that's 1 and 1, those are the ones you want to go address. So the complex has the sidewalks, ADA, playgrounds. There is some material inside that needs to be taken out. There are windows, there's a heating system.
Got asbestos in the school?
Yes.
We do. We have asbestos at the complex.
It's
We have
under
a
the,
nice little river running underneath the building.
yeah.
My office has a sign on the door that says,
Says, "Don't eat the-"
play with the tiles.
Yeah, don't eat the ceiling tile, don't eat the floor tile.
It's the floor tiles in
Well,
there.
just put a lot of wax on it, so it seals it in.
Well,
Absolutely true.
I've always
Yeah.
said that the buildings are well-maintained.
Very
Like, they
well.
always are clean.
They really
shiny,
are. We
the
do the
best. They
most
are.
with what we, with
Yeah.
what we have.
I had no
Maloney,
idea.
Kennedy, in this building, the high schools, that's,
Well, the high school's old, and
and there's older kids, which they
Yeah.
rough it up a little more.
Yeah.
Well, and again, nothing's been done. It's got
Right,
the
that's
original
right.
lockers in it, which are all dented and
Yep.
scratched, and original
Out of
paint
just
on them,
normal-
and, it just
normal
looks
normal
Yeah.
wear and tear.
Yeah.
I used to
Actually, for,
sub there when
Actually
it was
treated
new.
that pretty well for however many years, 40, 50 years of those lockers being in there. The
Yep.
kids actually took
Yeah.
pretty good care of them.
No,
Oh, it served its
Built well.
purpose.
Yeah, it really did.
Yeah, no, it's just time.
From the exterior, it's a beautiful building.
It is.
Right.
Yeah.
You are right.
It's
Yeah.
been kept up.
Yeah.
Yep.
from the-
Absolutely.
When you
It's
get
just got the
close,
other
it's
things.
just
And it probably has to be, I was just going to say, it's probably outdated.
Well,
I mean, it
and more
was, it
importantly,
kind of was
Too close to the
when
walls.
our daughter was there.
as an educator, you know how quickly things are changing, especially now with technology and
Yeah.
all of these new careers and opportunities for kids. It's not just the structure of the
That's right.
building that's deteriorating. It's just not conducive to the learning that needs to take place.
I know the high school, like I said, that's,
Yeah, it's-
our kids went through these schools, these buildings.
Yeah.
And
That was also
one of the
part
big
of-
things I remember about the high schools, they were
probably made
always,
money from my
they were
kids'
freezing.
damages.
My kids were always
Yeah,
freezing.
yeah. But now that you mention the kids again, one of the conversation pieces that we had when we were talking about the two-building configuration is, it was almost looked at also as it's a win-win for everyone, because this building is in great shape still,
Yeah.
right? And now we have Millville Elementary, which is in fine shape. The complex is really in need of some support also. And then, we take the PK to 5 and move them here. This is like a technological advance
Yeah,
for
for them,
those
yeah.
kids.
Right.
So it's
That's
a
the way,
step up.
if you're trying
And
to
then
find a
we
way
have
to
a
sell
step
it,
up.
that's how you're going to have to
Right,
sell
like
it.
to me, it's better for all of the kids in the district.
I would imagine that you might get pushback from parents of the younger kids coming up here to the older kids. And that's just people. But so you got to sell it.
Yep, absolutely, yeah. Well, we're happy
For
to.
salespeople, if you're interested.
I was just gonna say, we're happy to recruit you if
The more the merrier.
Sorry,
I should have warned you that if he doesn't try to get you to substitute, he'll try to get you to join this committee.
I'll do other things. I won't sub, though.
Yeah, get involved in it.
No, when I left, I said, I help any way I can, but I wouldn't sub, and they never called.
No, well, you can let your neighbors know.
She has
you,
PTSD.
if you really, I mean, $1,200 a year, I could get you that in a few weeks of subbing.
I'm not interested in
This is a
subbing.
win-win.
I'll
It's
help
a
it
win-win.
here.
The kids in the community.
We can work out a program where you work to have your taxes deducted.
You know, we know about that.
You can work off seniors, anyone over 60 can work it
Well,
off.
Yeah.
We know, we
how I
know.
got
Do you
hooked
have
into
things,
driving
do
the
you have
senior bus.
schools? Yeah. I would come in the
Working
school
in
and
the
do stuff.
schools is one of the options,
Is it?
right?
Yeah, we've had people in the cafeterias.
Well, remember
Put
when we
books on
first
shelves
went
in
down,
the library.
what was it, 2 years ago?
years
She
ago.
said,
That's right, yeah.
she said that, but no, that was the end of it. They took you and they use you, and I'm still home.
They scooped me right up.
It's all right, it's all right.
So,
But, yeah.
Okay,
that's
so
it.
I've gobbled up an hour.
No, this was
That would-
this
really
was super helpful.
It's gonna be a tough sell. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with everything the schools need. It's just at the cost. On top of the cost that we already have. I really do think that's gonna be a tough hurdle for you,
Understandably.
Yeah, you
And
need
I
to get-
understand from
Yeah,
someone in
'cause
your
we-
perspective, where it's like, yeah, you want to help the schools, you want the kids to get what they need, but you also may
Yeah,
not be able
like
to
we-
afford it. And you
Part of us
it's
says
a
we've
struggle.
done that. We've done that. But if you want the young families, it's kind of a catch right now.
It
You
is.
need to get the young
It is.
people in to buy into all of
Right.
this, but then you also need all of this to get them to come, so. Yeah.
And one of the other things is probably like your children, they grow up and they move out of town.
Well, one who has no children has moved out of the town.
Yeah.
The one that has children
It's still here.
is still here.
The one who they took all her stuff to college is still here because she has nowhere to go.
She never let anyone It really was kind of funny.
it was hilarious.
She cried, but we laughed.
She said we were sick.
Oh, you're fine.
Where did she go to college? I'm just curious.
Well, actually, it was my sister. She lived with us for years. And that was Syracuse.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Didn't
Yeah,
have
we
to fly out.
packed the car and She's standing there in the driveway.
says, yeah.
We're like,
Rhode Island
let's
College?
go. No, she
Why would
went
you want to go to Syracuse? It snows in July. Come
Yeah,
on.
Yeah,
it
Well,
does.
we got a couple good ones out
We
there.
went up there for the campus, to see the campus in April, and we went, it was almost snowing. Like, we didn't have the proper clothing.
I went there in May for a project meeting and got snowed in for 3 days.
Yep.
And then I went in June and it snowed.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
You people
yeah,
in
like
Scenes
right up
live
there.
up there. What's wrong with you?
Thanks.
Crazy.
They said, Greg, we don't want you back here anymore.
I know. They blamed it on me.
And our oldest granddaughter went south.
She went
She's in
south,
South
yeah.
Carolina, University of South Carolina.
She went to school here, though.
Yep,
Yeah. Well, in elementary.
yeah.
But yeah, we've had kids.
But we haven't physically been in the buildings in a long time.
Yeah.
Well, let us
Mostly
pick
down the
your,
street.
now I'm going to try to pick your brains. Where is it that we should be getting to
get the
this
information,
message
right.
and this information out?
Well, my first thought was, I'm sorry.
Or what
My first thought
forums,
was,
like what format works for you guys,
this works for me.
Yeah?
But you know what, a hard sell is going to be the seniors.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you could have go down to the senior center and chat them up. I don't know, but that might be something. You want your target, you don't want that mixed audience, you want the one, so you can address their
Yeah.
specific and hear what they have to say. I don't know if you get a lot of people or not, but Karen might be able to organize something like
Do you
that.
ever go to the lunches or the stuff that they have? Like, would they invite us or would they not?
I'm sure they would. Would you agree?
Well, they better be inviting us now because we're catering the
you're catering
lunches.
for
Oh,
us.
there you go. That's right, that just started, that's
Yeah,
right.
that just
just-
started.
And,
Yeah, Karen's put all that together.
Those are the, yeah.
But I
she's-
bet if you
she's
talk to
great, yeah.
Karen, you're not going to get, you won't get 30 people, but you'll get people,
Yeah.
they're-
It's their own.
He drives them
60, 60 becomes 90.
oh my God.
But I agree with you that it has to be that,
Like, that
individualized group
Yeah.
and not like a town meeting.
And answer the
Because-
questions,
yeah.
give them, serious answers, and,
Have them be heard.
yeah, not just general.
Like, if
but,
we were
yeah.
sitting, the two of us were among 100-plus people, just listen, because you can't have this
Right,
dialogue.
right.
So just listening, we're going to be going back and forth, and, and still not getting the answers that we want.
Right.
And imagining what the answers are.
Yeah.
So
Or
the
thinking we
smaller
heard
group.
one, I hear you say something, I hear it one way, he hears it another. So
That's why we've been together so long.
Nice.
he worked nights for years.
Truck, so I still have a home.
But
I just
my
can
brain
pay
went to
the taxes.
seniors because we did go down there to work off our things, and next thing you know, he's hired, he's driving them around.
It's a really good point. I'm wondering too if probably this wouldn't work at the senior center, but if we actually were doing multiple informational sessions, if we actually had signups, like so that it didn't get over
And
20 or 30 people in each one.
5 at a time.
Because you have one informational session at one
library.
time at the library, and like you said, 90 people show up, and
big.
3 people who happen to be the loudest get all their questions out,
Yeah.
and then
Well,
people like yourselves are like, I didn't even understand what
Right,
was.
right. Or you start talking about the person
I
who's
was
talking,
thinking,
it's just.
if you have a sign up, could you also have, what is your biggest question?
You
So
could-
so you're sort of ready ahead
you
of
could do
time.
something like that, but I guess I would argue a different point, Matt, because if I have to sign up for something, I'm not doing
Yeah,
it.
not
Like, because what if I can't go on that day? What if I can't?
Running late,
But if we
yeah.
find out events that are naturally happening, like there's a lunch coming, or there's a painting class, or and we say, can we take 20 minutes of your time? Or there's a library story hour with parents and kids,
Yeah.
can we have, a
Even
half an
like
hour
at
of that time?
the
And
the
go to
young
where the people
people.
are.
You have to show them what they're going to
With
gain.
letting them know that, these are the kinds of places that will be, so that there's a whole big schedule.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I can't maybe sign up and go on the 19th, but, I see they're going to be over here on the 20th.
That makes
and
perfect
I'll-
sense.
But not have to sign up, because
Yeah, I get it.
when you tell me I have to sign up for something, it's like, what did I just commit
Yeah,
to?
yeah,
What did I
what-
put my
yeah.
name down to? Oh, no, I don't really want to go, or I'm not feeling, in the
Or the
seniors
people
case,
in
I'm
this-
not feeling
or
well
when-
today.
Or when one of the sessions becomes the popular one and you
Right.
don't get into that
Right,
one,
And
then
it
it's.
doesn't matter what
then it's
age.
an
But I,
issue.
I would say, you got a list of over the next 3 months, we're gonna be in these 12 places or whatever, come to them if that's available to you.
And of course, you
but-
gotta use the social networking to your advantage, which is not my,
Yeah.
I join them and I leave because people are,
Yeah, it's just
But,
here and
um,
So who are the groups, so, I mean, that's what we were
Right.
planning on trying to address tonight, is where do we need to get to?
So we need to get to both senior
The
centers.
senior centers is a,
need to-
is a given.
Absolutely
Need
need,
to
and we
get
need to
the
get to
word
them
out.
multiple ways, like
Right.
at a luncheon, at a bingo night, at a, whatever, not that anybody wants bingo interrupted to say, by
They
the
don't.
way.
You
Oh,
can get
God,
that.
if you'd interrupted bingo when my mom was playing, you'd be
Yeah.
done.
So that's not a good
Take your
one.
life in your hands.
Yeah, not bingo.
That's not a good one. but-
bingo's
yeah.
very
Sign,
serious.
sign yes, you support this, and we'll leave, and you can continue
can
your
play
bingo
bingo.
game.
We'll buy you another card to play.
Yeah, there you go.
So the one is parent organizations, PTA,
Yeah.
PTO, any of those that are in that run
Yeah.
are one place.
Organizations.
The next one are sports groups, Little League, Pop Warner,
Yeah, sadly not.
any kind of youth group activity.
Is basketball still going on? Because I actually was,
Playoffs on
Playoff.
Saturday,
it's already
so
playoffs, so that
Yeah.
won't work.
And get them, they don't like to participate during season.
Yeah.
Right.
You have to get them in their off-season, get them engaged. Youth activity groups, theater,
think you
arts,
could-
scouts.
I think you gotta also target the boosters, the band
Yep.
and the
I
sports.
didn't get to that.
boosters.
You're
Sorry.
reading my list.
Got it.
What do you think
Now,
I was
may
doing
I
over here?
interrupt you?
You also have adult activity groups. I don't know how many are active in the town, gardening, garden clubs.
Tap in the library.
What
would know.
what town have
They have
you
a lot
been
of-
to?
But they have, I
But the
know
library,
The
we have to do
library
the
has
Has changed so
they
much
do-
besides making
People go in
groups
there,
that just
different groups
not
go in there.
active.
There's a lot of stuff at the library, you have the potential to hit different groups, because you have the
Kids and adults.
families that are doing the young kid programs, and you have the adults that are doing the craft night.
So
or-
that ties into one of my points further down, which is to get informational posters and printings and get them set up in town buildings and any
was gonna
business that
ask,
will let you do
Are
it.
you going to meet with them, verbally, or are you going to stand at games and hand out flyers? That's going to be my
Yep, you have
question.
flyers. Along with people to meet, still community groups, Elks, VFW, Rotary, whoever else is existing in town.
does Blackstone have any Elks, VFW? What
Don't
is
know.
the,
Lions.
Lions.
Lions, right?
Yeah.
And
What is
anything-
Millville has the
Polish
Polish Hall.
Polish Hall.
But do they ever meet?
Yeah.
And the Chestnut community,
down by
but
the
do they
bar.
ever meet?
I don't think
Oh,
so.
yeah.
No,
You know what
they're
I mean.
small committees.
There's an
Is it
association,
Elks?
but I don't know if they ever meet.
And anything like that, whether they meet or not, they have a member list
No.
usually.
Right, at least get the
No,
info out.
Get that
it's got that funny
information out.
name near the
The seniors
parking
groups we
lot.
talked about.
Millerville.
Millerville Men's Club.
Millerville.
Oh, the men's club.
Yeah,
Yeah, right across from the pot shop.
Yep.
Yeah.
convenient.
Stand outside those.
Give you a bag of Doritos, no?
They'll say we did
Is-
support you
is
by
there any
paying
other
our
way?
taxes on this.
Is there any other way? Like, should we put something on cables? Should we mail
I
something?
know,
Should we-
I feel like yes is the
Yeah.
answer.
The answer to that is yes, because
Because-
Then you
And I
also need
also
to,
know-
on those mailers, you need to invite them somewhere, right?
And they have to read
the
them.
answers question.
Like guilty, I'll say it, I read the Enlightener tonight, which is how we knew this was happening, and I can't tell you the last time I read the Enlightener. It usually doesn't make it into the house.
Something told you to read it. See,
So, he brought it in.
you're destined to be.
But you know what I'm
someone.
saying?
I read the last
Like,
one and I said,
And like even Facebook, the town, but like I said, I've been on them and then I leave them because
It's tough. They can be
because of
very
who's on there. But I guess you have to just tap them all. I don't know if you have Twitter, I don't know.
We
Yeah,
do.
Yeah, you're definitely
Just have
doing
to get-
Twitter,
you
you're
have
doing a project-based website. You need to link it to everything that's been done.
And we also got a thing today, the Parks and Recreation are doing tons of stuff. You might want to make a presence in those.
Yeah,
Thanks.
tie into
Oh, I
those
did see
guys.
that. Yeah.
We also
We got
talked
something
about,
today?
Came in the Enlightener.
The Blackstone Parks and Rec had posted like their whole year.
Yeah.
It was like a
Did we get
separate
an Enlightener
postcard.
again? Did we get one?
I think we're supposed to.
Did it come in the
I didn't get
Enlightener
my
or the
mail
senior
till-
We
center?
should be
or
using our
yesterday.
own events. Mr. BMR's going on at the high school.
There you go.
I think it was a secret.
Well,
How
it gave me
about
both
open
those
houses,
things.
though?
It might have come in the senior.
yeah, I talked about open
think it came
houses
in
on my list here, and who gives,
Parent-teacher
how
conferences.
often do you do them, and who
Report card
guides the tours?
conferences.
Tours at the high school are very effective when students guide them.
Okay.
That's what I was thinking, have seniors or
Yeah.
somebody guide them.
Yeah. The,
But we should have an informational section, meeting afterwards,
well, you can.
auditorium.
You can do, tours at schools seem to work best when you start and end in the cafeteria, or you start, if you use the high school, start in an area that's small enough where you can talk and tell people what you're doing and why you're doing it. Then you give a tour around the building, and you end up in a space where you can have
It's in the
coffee
worst
and
part of the building,
cookies
though.
and sit and talk. And then when you get to those spaces, you have various settings around it that focus on a particular piece of the effort, and you have someone there who can answer questions. So it's structured pretty stringently, but it doesn't feel it when you do it, especially if the kids lead it or a teacher leads it, who can be more familiar with the space they're walking through. And then when you get back, you'll have people that have different interests and have boards set up or areas to talk far enough apart so that you can talk about finance, you can talk about the building, you can talk about education without people
Career night.
overhearing one
Yeah, that's
another.
the same thing,
Yeah.
like maybe, tour starting every hour or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, when you were just saying that, I don't know how, I know how they used to be, the parent-teacher conferences, how they were set up, and I know how they were when I was on the opposite side of the table. We, at the in Hopedale at the elementary level, everybody met in the auditorium, cafeteria, whatever it was called, everybody, the parents, everybody, and the principal always spoke to
And
everybody and
did a
then
welcome.
released them
Yeah,
to
yeah,
go
yeah.
wherever they had
That
to go.
has happened in the,
But
since
that might be a-
nothing has
Years,
happened.
yeah.
That might,
It's
you
they've
know,
now
you take
been
15
virtual.
minutes before they go to their
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
My parent-teacher conferences always seem to take place in the principal's office. I don't know what that means.
Well,
Group though, right?
you're too much information.
I'm just thinking with people's like time, like schedules, obviously, especially parents with younger kids, like people are just all over the place. And
Yeah.
this open house idea sounds great, but it like I'm thinking it maybe like on a Saturday and it has to run from like
All day
9
long.
to
Have to be a
2.
weekend.
Yeah.
And maybe we like even have like ask some of the high school kids or find a group to kind of do something to entertain the kids, whether it's a game outside.
Oh, yeah. You have to take care of the
That way they
kids.
can bring the kids so that the parents can actually come, have some
Does,
daycare.
The band playing.
I was just, the
Yeah,
band,
yeah.
do they still have their craft fair?
Oh, yeah, that's in the spring,
they don't
right?
have it
Is that May?
They don't have
Did
it.
they
So-
stop?
Well, because of the pandemic, or
Well,
is
yeah,
it,
they-
is it
Maybe it's
gone?
coming back?
So,
Is it because of the pandemic, or is it?
It was
It
pandemic,
was a lot
because
of
they had
work,
always
yeah.
had it, I thought,
Yeah, we
right?
know
Did they
that
stop
too.
before?
Stop, yeah.
I was going to
think
say,
the
that'd be
year
the
before.
perfect,
Oh, was
that'd
it?
be a,
Just-
you've got to
Yeah,
capture
They were
the
actually
audience,
trying to
but-
downsize it
Yeah.
and make it smaller, and then I think.
But do they, I think,
I almost wonder if we could partner with, like, the soccer organization and have, like, Soccer Saturday be on the BMR field, and then have the tours at the same time. So families who are already committed to sports, you're just coming here instead of the complex for a Saturday.
Yeah.
And then, oh, hey, let me
Drop your kids off.
walk through the high school and grab a tour while I'm here.
Yeah,
Or
if
just
you-
kind of partner it with something that's going to
Yeah.
draw them, because on a Saturday, you're going to be like, oh, you know what, I got to run to soccer, then I'm running to this store, I got to go grocery shopping. Oh, I totally forgot the tours are over by now.
But then I think, because I
pick up
think,
my kid.
but as much as Saturday is crazy,
Again.
a weeknight is just as crazy.
Yeah.
And a Sunday, I think most people just don't want to do stuff on
Yeah,
Sundays. But
meet people where they are.
are, yeah.
and
Go to
Get
them.
them
All they wanna
into
do
there,
on
and then
Sunday is
the
sulk.
most
Monday's
successful
coming.
tours we've seen were the kids were leading it, and this is at an elementary school level. The fourth and fifth graders were leading it, and when there were 5 people ready to take a tour, or one person who was waiting for 5 minutes, the tour went out. And so you just, and then the kids, and you circulate the kids through. So, you know, a kid at that age is good for about 30 minutes, and then they're tired. You get a high school kid, get a group of kids and say, I need you for an hour. And I guarantee you that every 5 minutes you'll be walking.
You got your
Yeah.
National Honor Society kids have to earn all those
Student council.
credits.
some are
and
looking for
stuff.
service hours
council.
and
And those are the
would
kids
be
you
willing
want.
to do it.
Yeah.
So I'm constantly thinking action steps, and like the school stuff, we can do that. That's really just a matter of, okay, we sit down and plot out, when do we want to have an open field? We can get the National Honor Society
Yep.
kids. We can do all of those things pretty easily. It's the connections to the other places that I'm thinking, how do we go about that? I mean, is that?
well, so some of us just have to start getting lists of who these contacts are, because I laughed at, as Greg was reading his list, I mean, we don't have community like, there is a gardening club, there is that, that's one, but we don't have a VFW, like, we don't
Yeah, we don't
have
have a lot of this.
active, like,
Yeah.
there's the whole Chestnut Community Center, and I know they have a board, but who's in charge? So, action step number one is trying to find out
Trying to
who's in
find out
charge.
who it is.
Because some of our more active groups, which nobody's mentioned yet, are our churches,
Yeah. Yeah, the churches
which is
are.
probably on your list, and I
It was.
interrupted.
The churches,
Right where he was.
the other ones are police benevolent associations, anything that's got a membership list and might have someone to say, hey, maybe you want to listen to these guys. That's where you want to get to. And it has to be consistent. None of this is one and done.
Right.
It's a couple of tour days and a couple of meetings with the seniors and constant posters that are updated. The worst thing that can happen is a poster that's posted in Blackstone Town Hall gets old. Print another one, print a different one. It's easy enough to do. It just requires a lot of attention. It's a real change from what we've been
those
doing for a
election
year.
signs from last
And it becomes real feet on the ground now.
We got our Memorial Day celebration.
Yeah, any parades in town, anything, any kind of celebrations, 4th of July?
Yep, Memorial Day we do. Well, Blackstone does. Just lost my train of thought. When should we do these? Because if we wait, if we approve this statement of interest next week at our school committee meeting, and we won't know until July, do we do this before?
I think you take between now and then and start to build your reservoir of resources, both contacts and potential approaches and materials, and try them out. You keep meeting, maybe some more people show up, and you go, what if I said it this way? Oh, okay, you watch their reaction. If they get up and leave, you go, well, that didn't work, right?
Yeah, I feel like whoever the contacts are at whatever organizations are in the community, we need to find out what the schedules are.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Because to
saying,
your
we
point,
need to
yeah,
figure
yeah,
out who
we
they
can-
are.
right.
And do they even have a group, do they have a membership list, do they have a
When
group?
do they have gardening
Right.
club
Right,
meetings, right? Or
right.
when do they have?
They're in the
PBA?
gardening
Yeah.
club.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, and even if it's 5,
Yeah.
that's great, like, that's
And
fine.
I think that's a great kind of starting off point to, what's the work we can do between now and is figure out who our constituents are.
Yeah.
And figure out how, even ways that what are things that go out to them? I mean, we know that the Enlightener goes out, but maybe people don't read it. But, we know
Wow, she was looking
that.
right at you when she said that.
Maybe if we send,
But maybe around, I know around
I don't even live in
election
town and I
times,
read it.
the town clerk send out a flyer. Maybe,
Bubble,
The other thing is, I know that we have our all-call system, right? But
Right.
it calls the parents. But we've worked with the police before when we were doing the changes in the routes. They have their police system and they just selected a whole bunch of town residents and they went plop. So maybe something like we could talk to them and say, not to send out the information that way, but to say the information will be available here, here, and here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like just so that
Or-
everyone gets something.
Or in a church bulletin,
Or in a church
you
bulletin,
can't, the
yeah.
church won't let you go speak, but they'll let you put in a bulletin that you're having these open houses or
Yeah.
whatever.
You got that really spiffo green sign out in front of Blackstone Town Hall. Put it on there.
Oh, yeah.
Informational meeting.
Yep.
That's our
Yeah,
new
we got
senior
the one in front of,
DPW's got to have one of
Millville as
those
well.
light up flashing signs.
Are we allowed to hand out flyers like at the town meetings?
Any public meeting,
No.
you cannot on the floor, if it's going to be voted on,
Right.
informational.
So this year would be informational, right?
I
This
don't
town
think there's any
meeting?
rules against informational. Not that I'm aware of. You can't do it if it's subject to be voted on.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you've got a whole bunch of groundwork to do. I wouldn't be so afraid of getting started. I'd be more concerned with getting prepared to start
yeah,
in the next month and a half. And I think you still need to meet, and because not only is it feet on the ground and a lot of shoe leather, but it's a lot of electronics nowadays.
yeah.
And it's got to stay current, and someone's really got to monitor it so that you're shutting down the trolls and you're adjusting the message to answer what's coming up. An FAQ piece of your website is huge. So that you're not answering 27 different versions of the same question every week. Yeah. Yeah. You get a question about, I don't know, grade alignment. It's on the FAQ. If you have something that grows out of that, let us know. We'll answer it.
Yep.
Well, and to that end, I was talking to Jesse earlier about putting together like those video segments or sections of different pieces of the information and kind of having them either on YouTube or doing the Facebook Live stuff. So is all of this prep work? I think maybe we should get all of those things together and all of the publication materials together while we're identifying who these people are. And then, once we've got to your, what you were saying, Greg, once we have the materials almost ready to go, then we can we schedule with these groups and the contacts that we've made.
Yeah.
Tara, I like your idea at these town meetings in May, if nothing else, an FAQ kind of page
Yeah.
that, if you're hearing rumors,
Yeah,
here's what we have done so far, here's where we're going.
right.
And, we're in a limbo, but
You have a informational website.
yeah,
that they
here's a
could-
website
Says what
that'll
to do.
continually be updated, here's contacts that can,
Yep.
and if you have an organization that meets and you want us to come talk to your organization, here's how you reach
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's a great,
And
just
we
one
bring the
page.
coffee and donuts.
Yeah,
Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts.
Yep.
I don't even know if there's that in town anymore.
Yeah.
Girl Scouts,
Yeah.
Boy
I
Scouts,
see
Boy
Cub Scout
Scouts were
signs.
big, yeah.
once
Boy
in a
they
Scouts
both-
were big at one point.
they were huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think everything's gotten smaller.
Well,
Social media.
It's still active.
and the pandemic.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sure.
Yeah,
Well,
the pandemic
yeah.
definitely.
None of that has helped this
Yeah.
whole process.
Exactly. And speaking of the video segments too, when we just did that high school one, like showing how everything we offer and, the upbeat, I think we need a video to kind of summarize the needs too. So I think that will be a nice,
Yeah, the videos can be very effective if you do them in real time and show what's wrong.
Yep.
Because it'll take people to places that they don't know exist in the building. You can also show the other buildings and say, here's
why.
the tour. You can also show other high schools in the area that this is what a modern high school looks like.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, some of your slides in the presentation.
yeah, the presentation you had that.
They do they do wake people up to what the state is willing to participate in and what kids and teachers outside of VMRS are learning in.
And we can go to neighboring towns if they let us in, like.
Well, if you're nice, they
It's not
probably
like you have
will.
to say,
We're not nice.
Well, you're complimenting them, so.
right?
You'd have
Yeah, we
kids.
want what you have,
We'll
so.
have video club kids.
We just don't want our kids to
do
leave
it for
ours.
you.
Yeah.
Towns that sit there.
I'm thinking you could also show the downstairs of this, because people are, my little 3-year-old.
Curious.
Go
It's gonna be in
where?
the basement?
Yeah, right.
That's right.
Show them
That's
how
right.
nice it is.
That's what I was saying. That's
Yeah.
exactly what, that's,
Yeah.
as far as,
3-year-old's not going
that's
to
all
middle
they'll think
school.
about.
Right. Well, it's
Yeah,
no
show-
longer middle
show-
school.
show 'em the
it'll
space
be
and
the
describe what's gonna
elementary
happen to it.
school. The new elementary school, no longer
Well,
middle
and,
school.
or here's Millville Library, and you can't go into it because you have to step down these 3 steps. Look at the library you could have for your children to run around, and you'd go from 2 librarians to 1 librarian. Oh, money savings.
Jesse, we hope you're taking notes while you're recording all of this and getting some really
I
good
think he's
ideas.
asleep in there.
Well, we kept them out late last night, so.
That's true, he was there all night.
But what I'll do, I'll send this, I'll send it over to you, Matt, you can distribute it. It's just my notes and thinking as we were going along here. So some of it will match your meeting minutes and others will just be
We
able to.
can share that with our secretary, too. Yeah, she's been
Do that
doing a
too.
phenomenal job, by the way. Your first at bat,
Her third meeting of the
home
week.
run. Home run.
Good thing there's no more tomorrow.
Right?
Do we, speaking of meeting dates, we need to book some more. What do we want to do?
Indeed.
We don't have anything else planned, right? This was the last one we have out?
I believe so. I just have to double check. Give me 1 second.
Oh, we do, we have the 30th.
I was gonna say,
I
I
thought we
think
had-
we have one, I was just gonna do a
March
search
30th.
for capital. plan.
Yeah, we held the 30th.
Send me a quick text.
And at 5:30.
Yep, that's the last one. We have the 30th, 5:30. That's it.
And do we do that because of,
Because we're meeting so early in this month.
okay,
Yeah, we're trying to keep it consistent enough so it doesn't lag.
perfect.
And we didn't want to bump into April break in the middle of April.
Right, that's what I was wondering, were we avoiding April, or was it just,
I think it was like, try to work around it.
so it looks like April 27th then would be maybe the next? Are we just doing monthly? We don't need the every 2
I
weeks
think
or
that
anything,
makes,
right?
It's
I think we
Administrative
also need
Professionals
to-
Day, you can't meet on that day.
Oh,
what did you say?
Administrative Professionals Day.
that's
Oh.
funny, why is I have that on mine too, I didn't think I had those little events. Tax day, the 18th? The 27th work? We think?
I- Yes,
All right.
in fact, let me put it in.
May 9th is the elementary school PTO meeting. If you would like, I can try to see if the other members would like us to attend and open it up to the public, like,
Good idea.
not only come to a BME PTO meeting, but also come. to
When's
the
that,
Capitol. We have May 9th. We have one in April, but I'm actually out of town for work, so I'll miss that one. But if someone else wants to do it, it's the 11th.
I will be on vacation that week.
All right.
Okay, so I have Scott. I'm trying to put this actually in, and I'm going to invite people as we book
Tara,
them.
what time are those meetings? 6, right?
No, I'm sorry, the 9th I will be here.
6:30.
I don't know how Jason does this that quickly.
Then the end of May are the town meetings,
That's right.
so have, hard copy for that.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
between those two meetings, March and April, we should definitely figure out what the handouts.
You may want to meet sometime mid-April, mid-May.
Yep. Because
Just
what
to-
is Millville? Is that the 9th?
Second Monday of May, right?
Second Monday, so it'd be May 9th, actually the same day as PTO.
Let's see how we do at the end of the month with everyone's information gathering, and then we may need to meet earlier in April to make sure that you're ready for May, because May kind of seems like the start of everything by then.
Yeah. Blackstone Town Meeting is May 30th, 31st, I mean, right, it's the Monday after.
The Monday after.
Memorial Day?
Tuesday after,
Tuesday, I
after
mean.
Memorial Day.
Yes.
Labor
Wow,
Day.
we all,
That was the town meeting?
Yeah, town meeting.
yeah,
It was the 30th, you said?
31st,
Gotcha.
Tuesday. All right, so we'll meet March 30th and then put 27th on hold of April, but maybe pick an earlier date.
Yeah, I think you,
Well, school vacation's the week before, so it'd have to be like the week of the 11th.
yeah, well, let's see how
We
we
wanna
do.
go.
See how you do at the end of the month. And you can tell I've been working with committees too long when I start to set your agendas and then I make motions to adjourn. It's just, I get way too familiar.
Mary Matt.
I'm sorry, what
I'm
time,
mumbling.
6:30?
Do I?
5:30 for this meeting. If we do PTO, it's at 6:30.
Guys, I didn't put you on my invite. I would
I wrote it in my book.
couldn't really.
You're gonna lock the door the next time you see me.
We might actually have to
not.
move the PTO meeting because of town meeting.
I'll be
so,
more quiet, right?
Yeah. Which is plenty of time for that.
Quiet we don't need.
Yeah.
I appreciate all the answers and
Yeah.
response.
We appreciate the questions.
Yeah, thank you. Really, it did help
It
with
is helpful.
our items and planning.
And the perspective, and the
discussion.
perspectives.
You gotta know what you're up against, or you're not,
Well, and again, it's not a you know what I mean? It's like, it is a battle because we want to
It is
move this
battle.
forward, but it's not. We get that some people are going to struggle with it. We're just trying to move forward with what we feel is right for the district.
I see both sides of it.
Yeah.
I really do. It's just, It's just tough.
Hard pill to swallow.
There's just not enough of,
Come on.
there's just not enough of
There were
that. There's not
Wait a
enough
minute,
of.
wait a minute.
At least, there's not enough of at least saying, oh, it's okay, I get where you're coming from,
Yeah.
but I may not agree, but, you know, it
Right.
just becomes combative, and it's like,
Oh,
well,
no, you can't
Right.
fight about it. You gotta come listen.
But did hearing like 5 years out help a little bit, like with
Mm-hmm.
the
Well,
$1,200
yeah,
or
when you
however
lay
much?
it all out and, you know, you're putting good
Yeah.
numbers to it.
because they're
it
like,
makes a
the
lot more
prices of the
sense.
Cape are gonna have to come down at
By
some
then.
point. By 5 years.
I think of 5 years, that's my age.
Through town though, that like the next tax bill that comes out is gonna have this huge hike on it because of the school.
Well, that's what
Is
people
that-
Well,
are afraid
that,
of.
I mean, yeah,
I mean, I know it's not gonna
because
happen
it's
like that.
presented
But-
in, you know what, I'm not gonna say coffee shops, but, you know, like, I know where we were hearing it, and it was, like, alarming.
I
Yeah.
think
It was
that's the
alarming.
biggest thing we're gonna have to
Yeah.
address.
Yeah, you gotta put in
Because there was no way, there was no
time
way.
constraints to it.
Yeah.
What we were hearing was, I told you, the first person that said something to me, I thought it was so ridiculous, I just totally dismissed it and went about what I was doing. Then I started hearing it from other places, I was like, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute.
Yeah.
So,
And you said you read it in the first, like last month's Enlightener. Was there too much information there?
There was a lot of information in there, and it, you know, it had all the projections of, you know, the student enrollment, you know, the decreasing, I mean, the age of the schools, what's needed. You know, it was a good piece. But when you put it with the numbers you hear, it's
Yeah.
like,
Right.
right, you
holy
just,
crap.
yeah.
This could
You need
happen
all the
next year.
You need
you know?
the filling in the cake.
Yeah. So it was presented well, but everything you hear around it.
Right.
Plus, sometimes reading it, and I'm guilty of this.
Oh, yeah.
I read about 2.5 paragraphs, and it's starting, you know, I'm not here, I'm not even,
Did the same.
you know?
And you had to flip a page, and you had to find it on the
Then you go
page.
search
and then-
for it.
Yeah.
It was like, that chart doesn't go with that page.
Yeah.
Admittedly, I did the same, and I think I edited it. No.
No, I mean, it's just, again, our kids have been out of the system, and I just have blind faith, you know?
You gotta read
Um,
between the lines too, and then you gotta
Yeah.
look at the financial responsibility that's gonna come with it. And, you know, that impacts too. That's a big impact on a lot of people.
Absolutely.
And it's
And
not
it's
something you
and,
can just
you
say,
know-
well, yeah, oh yeah, I know, but we need the schools, yep. But people need to eat.
Yeah.
Need to stay warm,
Yeah.
people need to buy clothes. And some
their
people-
oil bill.
Yeah, the oil bill, yeah, hang on. And some people, I mean, they're just barely getting by. So you start throwing numbers out like this, and they go into a tailspin.
Yeah.
And then it comes time to vote. Well, you know which way the
Well,
vote's
it's a
gonna go.
panic, it's, you know,
Panic.
do I
You
eat
know?
or do I?
Yeah, do I eat or I pay
Do
for
I
new
send
school?
my, you
Can
know-
I afford to go to CVS and get my prescription, or I gotta pay my taxes? And that's what it comes down to, you know? It's the hard reality of life. And, you know, it's nice when, you know, younger people sit around and you got two giant incomes coming in, and, you know, some people are paying $4,000 or $5,000 a month for a house. We know this. We all hear it. And then you got people who just have normal jobs, and they're gonna panic, you know, like a truck driver and a teacher.
Yep.
Well, our taxes are gonna go up $2,000 a year.
It's significant.
Yeah,
It's
that's a big
huge.
hike.
It's huge.
You know, and I got a kid that's gonna go to college, or, you know, how's he gonna play soccer? We can't afford to pay for that, pay for the taxes.
Still paying
And
that
this is
college
what it comes
bill.
down, and then, okay, and then you go to the grocery store. Okay, you're getting killed. I mean, we're paying $9 for a pound of bacon. Come on. So, and then when you hear your taxes are gonna go up, then you hear, you know, your taxes will go up, or you pull into the gas station and fill up your truck, and it costs you $80, $90, or $100 to fill up the tank.
$100.
$100. Yep.
$100?
You let it go low, though.
Yeah.
To get 9 miles to the gallon.
So,
Yeah, I get
okay.
22.
It never goes
That's
below
not bad.
half.
It's not bad, but it's still when you pull into the
So I
pump.
understand.
You know?
That's less than a week, you know, it's like.
22?
Yeah,
that
my
what-
GMC Sierra. But,
My son's number
you know, the
one.
whole thing is, it's a big tank.
Yeah.
You know, it's got a 36-gallon gas tank in the damn thing.
All right.
Wow,
You know, so if I let that go low, it's gonna cost me about $150 to get out of the gas station.
I never fill my truck up. I always usually put like $30 in. Because if I fill it up, I'm just gonna use it more.
I work off.
You know? So it's like,
It gets down to about a
take
third.
a long trip.
You gotta stay home.
There's a book in here about psychology, of how you run your gas tank in a truck.
But this is what people are gonna think.
No,
I mean,
it's true.
it comes down to
Well,
the
yeah, and
economics.
that's the bottom line, and that's
the
the
bottom
piece
line.
And you know-
that we have to get our questions
And
to be able to
paying
respond
taxes,
to.
people don't feel like they get something for it. You know what I mean? Like, you go pay $9, you get a pound of bacon, at least you have the bacon in your hands, you know? You pay taxes, you just feel like it's going, you know?
Yeah.
But it was only good for that 15 minutes when you ate it.
Yeah, I know.
But still, you
And
have
then
it.
you gotta listen to your doctor
Oh, you
tell
can-
you how
you
it
can-
is you shouldn't have been
You're
eating.
trying to eat your tax bill, you know?
It never tastes quite as good as bacon. Not that anything does.
No, but it is, I mean, that's the harsh reality of it. And most people, like, I look at everything from the economic end of our household. I take care of that. She always took care of everything else, and I worried about the pennies. And a lot of people are like, I mean, whether it's, the husband or the wife, it doesn't make any difference, but it all comes down to the bottom line.
Dollars and cents.
And you gotta survive. And you're taking that much out of your, like I said, some of the younger couples and, the professional people, they make big money. And it won't affect them as much as it affects someone
Right.
who, is pulling down.
The one with the kids.
The one with the kids making you're pulling down $100,000 a year or whatever. $200,000 a year for a working couple's not a lot of money nowadays.
I know, it's,
I would,
a lot of
yeah,
money.
but I would argue in our communities that we have, I would argue we don't have many of those couples
yeah,
that it's not.
probably.
Like, we have to show that this it has reached a critical mass, kind of you're paying with the right arm or the left arm, and here's why we need to do that, and because there's not anybody, I mean, you could take the fanciest houses in our communities, and people are still living paycheck to pay. Like, it's
Oh,
just,
yes.
that's the way
Oh,
our
absolutely,
world,
yeah.
our
You
world
want
around
those
here.
young
Yes.
This
the
is-
people
yeah.
he's talking about, those are the people you want to move in.
Yeah.
But your
you know,
next piece is to turn it and start to show the return on investment. for doing
That's
this.
exactly what you have to
That's
show.
the piece you need to
Yeah.
get to, because.
well, and that's I'm sorry, I listened to this and it just reminds me, people don't even realize in these communities, we said last night, our free and reduced lunch population
Yeah.
in the past decade has gone from 10% to about 50.
5-0?
52%.
52%.
52% are on free and reduced lunch.
They're actually on it, not just applying for
On
it.
it.
So
means the
they're
number's
not
probably
they're not bringing home
Yeah. Fill it out.
the 200, the
That's-
people in these
that's right.
communities are not bringing the 200,000.
Yeah.
So, to your point, it's that much harder for them, and we do get it.
Yep.
Yeah, I know, I mean, but that's the reality of it, too.
Right.
That's what you're facing.
And that's it, like that's it. It's like, both pieces are reality. It's a reality that people can't afford it, but it's also a reality that if we want any of the kids in this
Right.
community to go to a high school, that's not gonna keep cutting it.
Right.
Well, we
Yeah,
can't
but-
afford it, but we can't not afford it
Right.
either. Like,
There you go.
Yeah,
And,
it's
and so I think if you can show that you, just like the district is planning for something, you as a family have to plan for something, that we're not asking this out of your pocket today. We're not, you're going to the gas station and you're putting your $100 in the tank. We're not asking for that $100 today, but we're going to ask for that $100, and here's why we need it.
Yeah, and you need to do the spin on how important education is to a town. Not just,
Yeah.
this is why we're asking for the money, but
Right.
this is what a good
The
education.
return on your investment.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. You want to give something to your kids that may move, but if you ever want your kids to move back, your house has to be worth something, right? Like, that's part of it. But-
And hopefully
Well,
you
and if I
remember-
want them to move back, I want them to be educated in a way that they'll take care of me.
Exactly, very good point.
There's that, too. We
Isn't
won't
that
touch that
the- No, we won't touch that one,
Yeah.
because they come back.
with their kids.
They don't leave, never mind they come
Oh,
back, they don't leave.
no, once they're yours forever.
I just told mine I don't want them to leave.
Oh, that'll change.
yours.
How old are yours?
I have one that's 17. My daughter's 17. I got a
daughter,
15-year-old son.
Yeah.
Actually, I should rephrase that. I told my 11-year-old daughter I don't want her to leave.
Yeah, pick and choose.
My 17 and 15-year-old weren't in the room at the time.
Buying a house one house away from you, is that considered leaving?
As long as they stay.
Paying their own bills, it still doesn't matter, right?
Because they don't have room in their house.
Yeah, or your basement's full of their stuff, right?
Yeah,
Matter of fact.
They haven't left.
I got a storage
Yeah,
shed
there's still
with
stuff.
motorcycles.
You know, you're 40 years old, get it out. Our oldest is 40, our youngest is 37.
Wow.
So you have to do what my folks did to my sister and I. They moved.
Yep.
We came home one day and they said, hey, we sold the house.
Somebody else is living there.
They tried that, they tried
My
that.
parents did that to me, too.
The key doesn't fit in the lock.
Oh, when I first met my wife, I told her for 6 months she believed me that I came home from school one day and I put the key in the lock and it wouldn't work. And when I called my sister, she said, yeah, the folks moved. My wife believed that, my now wife believed that for 6 months, and she still married me.
Parenting is different.
It had some fun.
Well, and unfortunately, some of these kids graduate with such a big
Yes,
student loan debt that
Yep.
they just can't afford
that's
it.
another.
That's mine,
That's
she's
another
coming home.
problem.
And that'll be some of what
Put
we
an
address.
addition on the house so I can live here. Me and my wife can live here.
Yeah, those are tough years when the kids through college.
Yep,
Adjourn.
yep, that's what I was waiting for. Anything else? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, everybody.